Greetings, it's Iain from RTO. 24 hours late, but we managed to sort out yesterday. Well, I did. It was a long old process, but it's up and running again. I did a little test yesterday afternoon and everything's working again. So, we can now continue with the live album ranking of Tangerine Dream. Now, we went from 26 up to number 14 last week, so we're going to now continue with the list up to number 1. So we're going to start off at number 13 today. And the first one is, this was an album released in 2004, but it was actually recorded in 1990, and it's called East, live in Berlin. On here we've got Edgar Ferozzi, Paul Halslinger, Jerome Ferozzi, Linda Spar and Hubert Waldner. So the first 2 tracks actually come from an album called Optical Race, and they have gone for Marrakesh and Atlas Eyes. Good start to this one. Then we go to the Le Parc album and the Gaudi Park track. Gaudi Park, been there. Barcelona's a fascinating place, and that's a nice piece of music. So we're going to go back to the Optical Race now for Cat Scan. Interesting piece of music that seems to come to into its own as a live piece. Going to one of the soundtracks now. We're going to the Miracle Mile one, and for Teetering Scales. It's pretty cool. Then we have from Lily on the Beach, the title track. And then we've got a thing for this album called Nomad Scale. Now this is a very sort of 90s sound. The keyboard work is pretty good. It's got lots of synchrony, but it's the guitar work on by Jerome on this that's absolutely amazing. Then we have Daybreak on the River Spree. It's got water effects in there. It's got some nice and gentle acoustic work on there, and the keyboards again are really good. Then we have a track from one of their box sets, the iBox from 1970-1990, and a track called Looking for Cash Bar. Interesting track. It's got some nice tones on that one. And then we go back to Lily on the Beach for a couple of songs. We've got Mount Shasta, which is a good track, and the wonderful Alaskan Summer. Short but really nice. Off to another soundtrack now, and a couple off the Destination Berlin. As they're playing in Berlin, why not? So we've got Wall Street and Hitchhiker's Point. They're some of them tracks that you don't know what it was written for because you've never seen what it was on. So we go back to Lily on the Beach for the Long Island Sunset. Beautiful song that is. I do like that one. Then we're back to the Destination Berlin for Berlin Summer Nights. Really groovy short track. Then we've got from Tiger, Alchemy of the Heart. Great track. Great piece of music. Alexander Square from Destination Berlin. And then they do a cover of the Animals' House of the Rising Sun. And it's not a bad version actually. One of the better covers they've done. It's a really good album. Lots of soundtracks and little collector's album stuff on there, and some new good ones. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 7.6. Okay, coming in at number 12, another album that they released in 2004. This one was recorded in 1988, and it's Rockface live in Berkeley. It's got Edgar on it, Paul Haslinger's on it, and the other person on it is Ralph Wadeful. So again, we open up with another track from the Optical Race album, but this time it's Mothers of Rain. Then we move on to the Miracle Mile album, another album where they don't do much off, After the Call. It's a couple off Tiger. We've got Alchemy of the Heart again. Before that you get the actual track Tiger. Then we have this Papyrus, a piano piece. Really nice piece of music. And that actually goes into a short 4.5 minute piece of Farada. It's called Farada 88. So you get a little bit of that. That's pretty good. Then we have Live Miles from Tiger, which is pretty cool. Then Logos 88 from the Logos Live. We'll be talking about that later. And then they do a little thing called Parabola Edit. So it's a piece of bits of Parabola, which is pretty good. The second disc opens up with Table Bay. It's another of those little sound effects sort of thing, and that goes into Nomad Scale, which we talked about on just the last album. 3 tracks from Optical Race. We've got Cat Scan, Atlas Eyes, and Marrakesh. I love Marrakesh. Has got that feel about Marrakesh. Been to Marrakesh myself, so I can't see where they come in. I get where they come in with that. Then we have a little piece called Eden's Gate. It's a very short piece, and it goes into Ghazal from Optical Race. Wonderful how that sort of merges into that song. It's a love song and it's really nice. Alexander Square's on here as well from the Destination Berlin. Pretty cool. Then we have this little piano solo called The Silent League, and it starts with the Beethoven Sonata No. 8 in C minor, and then it goes straight into Canyon Voices from the Canyon Dreams original soundtrack, and they end up with the title track from Optical Race, which is a pretty cool track to end a gig with. Pretty good album, all sorts of mixtures of stuff here from that period of time. Nice to see some of the soundtracks being played live, so I shall give that one an RTO ranking of 7.7. Okay, coming in at number 11. Now this is recorded in 1999 at the Clangar Festival in Stradhall, Arnsbrook, but it was released in 2005 and it's called Rockin' Mars. So it's got Edgar and Jerome Ferrose, Gerald Grauwald and Emil Hatchell. Now the first album, first disc, all these tracks come off the really underrated Mars Polaris. So you've got Comet's Figurehead, which is absolutely outstanding. Rim of Scifelli, brilliant little track. Deep Space Cruiser, Eerie. Pilots of the Ether Belt, another sort of enchanting track. Spiritual Stardate, Level 2, wonderful. Mars Mission Counter, the eeriness. And then this second disc starts with Ça va, ça marche, Syrah Encore. And this was originally on a bonus disc for the Dream Ice 12 box set from 1988. It's a really enchanting piece. And then we go back into stuff from Mars Polaris, Astrophobia, wonderful track. Tharis Maneuver, love that little short track. Outland the Connolly, Dies Martis, Trans Mercury, pretty cool. And we end up, the last track is a track that's sort of in the same vein as Mars Polaris, Terra Gravity. It's very, as I said, very similar, but it's got some more technical interesting for that sort of time. It's an excellent little short piece. Then it goes into another new piece called Wormhole Number 5. Lots of drumming in this, really good. And that, but Red Ocean, out of the 3 new tracks on here, this is the best. It's ambient. I love the sound on that. It's terrific. Really enjoyed hearing the Mars Polaris album live with the new tracks as well. All very similar to the stuff off the Mars album. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 10, we have Supernormal, the Australian concerts from 2015. Now these have been recorded on the occasion of the Melbourne Music Week, which ran between the 16th and 20th of November 2014 at the Town Hall, Melbourne, and the ACMI, which is the Australian Centre for Moving Image, supported by the Goethe Institute of Melbourne. So playing on here, we've got Edgar Ferrose, we've got Torsten Queshing, Yurik Shuhas, and the wonderful Hoshiko Yamane. So it opens up with this fantastic organ piece to the intro to Ricochet, which we'll be talking about later, and then it goes into Ricochet Part 1, which is wonderful. Again, Part 2, which we'll talk about later. Then Rubicon 1, which is wonderful. Logos, we'll be talking about that later as well. Then we have Girl on the Stairs. Now, apart from being on a soundtrack for a TV show, they did actually put it on the deluxe version of White Eagle in 2020, and it's been remastered. Pretty good. Then we go to the album One Night in Africa for a bit of Madagascar. It's got a real African vibe to it. Then they do Poland, and we'll talk about that very shortly. Back to the One Night in Africa album. Twilight in Abidjan. Sorry, folks. I'll be looking at One Night in Africa at some stage as well. Then we have Astrophel and Stella from the Booster 3. We'll be looking at the Booster 3s as well. Then we have a track from the Chandra, the Phantom Ferry Part 2, and that's Aldebaran, which is really nice. Then we go to the Keep, the soundtrack, and we have a little bit of Ancient Power Plant, which is a weird track. Still don't know what it's all about, but there we go. Then we have a short piece from Farida, that's how you pronounce it. And then we go to the Tangram album, that sort of bonusy type thing with Wombsdom and Tragedy. We've talked about that before. Restless Mind from the Endless Seasons on here. And then from A Diary of a Robbery from the Grand Auto Theft 5 soundtrack. Boring. Don't like that. I don't know why they're doing it live. Centre of the Now. One of these is a track off the Josephine the Mouse Singer. Not very keen on this. The voices sort of distract you on that. The Silver Seal from the Keep is okay. Then we do that from the iBox box set again. We have Cool, Shibaya, pretty good. Exit from the album Exit, pretty good. Off to the Island of the Fae for a bit of breath kissing Matter's Mouth, really good. Dream Encores for the Order of the Ginger Guild, like that track. The Wonderful Cinnamon Roan from Hobera, another good thing. And then we have Arangelo Carili's La Folia. The first bit is an actual intro done on the organ. It's an old-fashioned sort of pipe organ sort of thing. It's wonderful, and that's of course from Josephine the Mouse Singer. The highlight of this actually is the wonderful dynamic and smooth violin playing from Hashiko. Then CD3, they play, and what I gather, they played in a screen in a cinema. They played the whole of The Sorcerer to the soundtrack, which is of course the introduction, the Sorcerer theme, the Call, Crash at Dawn, Impressions of Sorcerer, Grind, Creation, the Journey, Approaching the Danger, Ride Fast to Disaster, Rain and Thunder, Mountain Road and Nebulous, Jungle Path and Search. Brilliant to hear that whole album live. I think this is very good live album actually. Stunning music, the soundtrack sounds stunning live. It's one of my favourite soundtracks they did, so I'm going to give that an RTO ranking of 8.1. Okay, coming in at number 9. Now Pulsar will be very, very familiar with this one, because he did say that he was actually at this. Now this is Arizona Line, released in 2004, but it was actually recorded at the Scottsdale Mall in 1992. The band at the time were Edgar Ferrose and Jerome Ferrose, Linda Sparrow on saxophone, and Zalko Persia on the lead guitar and rhythm guitar. Now this one, don't know how this is how it did start, but it comes from the Oasis soundtrack, and that's Waterborne, which is a really nice track. Touch Wood from Raccoon, great little track that is. Rolling Down Kahunja from Melrose, don't get to hear that very often. Then a really updated version of the Blue Ridge, which was on the 220 Volt live album, which we did last week, along with Oriental Haze, which sounds really good. They've really jazzed it up a little bit more. Graffiti Street from Raccoons on here, the title track from Melrose. More from the 220 album now. We've got Two Bunch Palms, 220 Volt and Homelessness, all sound really good. So you got most of they must be the only band that's done a live album within a live album. Disc 2 starts off with the Story of the Brave from the Turn of the Tides album, pretty cool. Another track from that 220 volt live album, Sundance Kid. Back to Raccoon for Girls on Broadway, and the most popular and probably most well-known track, Love on a Real Train from the Risky Business. Everybody knows that one. Then Backstreet Hero from 220 volt live. Body Corporate from Raccoon and Raccoon, and then One Night in Medina. Now, this is a new track. It's got a mystique feel to it. I don't know if it's actually based around Medina on the island of Malta. An old ancient city, which is a great place to visit if you're on the island. It really works. I sort of get that. Then 220 volts again for Hamlet in Dreamtime, and then they do a very bad version of Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze. Yeah, the only live album that they've actually done practically the whole of another live album. Some tracks off Raccoon. It's a pretty decent, and that would have been a decent concert to see, and I'm sure Paul Sarah enjoyed it, and it was. I'm going to give that an RTO ranking of 8.4. Okay, number 8. Now this is one that was. It's got 2 titles. In 1981, they released it as Keyshot, but when they re-released it in '86, it had become Pernogram. It's a selection from 2 live concerts held in East Berlin on the 30th of January 1980. The 2 original concerts was available as Tangerine Dream Volume 17. The original title Keyshot is a reference to Don Quixote, and a film version was being screened nearby the cinema. Then they retitled it and located to a museum in East Berlin called the Pernogram Museum. So that's why they changed it. So it's Edgar Ferozzi, Christopher Frank, and Johann Schmolin. So it's just called 2 tracks, one called Keyshot Part 1 and Keyshot Part 2. Now Part 1, I like this. Is how this is split to 2 sort of 12-minute sections. The first bit is sort of dramatic and sort of like an orchestral overture thing, and then the second bit comes in and the drum machines start coming in. There's a little bit of sequencing in there as well. So by the time it goes into Part 2, it's really starting to become this really full piece of music. And then when we get some guitar in it, it just takes it to another level. It's a fantastic album. But for a live album, there's not much audience participation in there, because I suppose that's because it was recorded in East Germany. But the music on this is fabulous, so I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay, coming in at number 7, we've mentioned this quite a lot, but this is the first time it all come together, and it's Logos Live. It was released in December 1982, and it is a live concert from the Dominion Theatre. And it's short movements connected with atmospheric sequels. Logos captured a period of Tangerine Dream's evolution, and from experimental to melodic. Also documented by their soundtrack to the motion picture Risky Business a year later. From a concert of 2 hour with 50 minutes of original music included on the album. So, first track is Logos Part 1. Again, it's 25 minutes long, but it's split into first part. It's got some nice drum beats, and then halfway through it goes into this more soothing sort of track. Part 2, it sort of goes into this mystique, dreamy sort of thing, and then you get this uplifting tones come through the whole track. Really, really good. Then we have Dominion. It's got a drum machine, a very 80s drum machine, and they really use it to their full potential. Some nice tones on that. As I've said before, it's quite unique that Tangerine Dream do a live concert and they play something entirely new like they did here. It's a really good album. I'd put this up as one of their fine albums in their old catalogue. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.6. Okay, coming in at number 6. Now this is from 2014. It's the Fahedra Farewell Tour, the concerts. And it's only Edgar Ferose and Torsten Quashing. Never know how to pronounce his name. So this one starts off with a track from the Franz Kafka, The Castle and Odd Welcome. Interesting thing to start the show off with. It's okay. Then from the GTA Score 5, Burning the Bad Seal. I think that album is the best thing on there. It's got a bit of belt and it's got like a atmosphere to it. Off to the Optical Race album for Midnight Trail. Pretty cool. The Sorcerer theme, which is just a fabulous piece of music. Going to that One Night in Africa, The Twilight of Abidjan. Wonderful track. Then we get a little track from Finnegan's Wake, Hermaphrodite, which is pretty cool. And then we get the title track from Sleeping Watches in Silence. It's one of them sort of live vocal things. It's very eerie. From the Underwater Sunlight, the wonderful, I love this album, The Song of the Whale, really gets you into it. Then we have Horizon, which was on the Poland. Then another track from the Sleeping Watches Snoring EP, Hypersphinx, which is quite, again, a very atmospheric track. Then we get the title track from the Josephine the Mouse Singer. This is quite good. There's a clip of this on YouTube. This woman dressed as a black swan with a mask on. She's so graceful. Pretty good. And then we get Logos, a snippet of that. And then from Tiger we get Alchemy of the Heart. From the Sorcerer we get The Grind. Absolutely wonderful. The lovely Warsaw in the Sun. Oriental Ace from the 220. Three Bikes in the Sky for Melrise. Don't do that one very often. Pretty cool. The Girl on the Stairs, which is quite catchy. Then the opening track from the Island of Frey album, the Momental Riding on a Clef. Excellent track. The wonderful Trauma from Autumn in Hiroshima. For Hydra, really nice, sort of the whole thing scrammed into about 8 or 9 minutes. Pretty cool. The Berlin Summer Night from the Destination Berlin. Back to that Island of the Frey album, which is pretty good. The Darkness Veiling the Night. Love that track. Then Love on a Rail Train, of course, from Risky Business. Then they do a little thing called Beyond the Cottage and the Lake. Pretty cool. The Boat to China from Booster 2, and this one ends with the Silver Boots of Violet Green from The Angel from the West Window. Another of those live albums that's got a totally different set of songs that no one else does. I like that. If you go and see them, I think if you go and see them 2 or 3 times, it's always a totally different set. Really strong concept, and I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8.7. Okay, number 5. Now we've been talking about this for a little while. We've never really looked at the detail, and it's the Poland, the Warsaw concert from 1984. This is one actually spent 1 week on the album charts at number 90 in the UK. It was recorded on the 10th of December 1983 at the Tawor Hall in Warsaw. The lineup is Edgar, Christopher and Johan. Now it starts off with this wonderful track, Poland. Now, this is the full 23 minutes of it. I can understand why you've had it on the other albums as a snippet, because there's bits in this that are really boring. But they took the best bits are the bits that they always play on other albums. So not too bad. Then we have Tangent. I quite like this. It's quirky. It's certainly got that mid-80s feel to it, but they were very good at working with that sound at that time. Then we have Barbara Kane. Lots of sequencing. I just love sequencing. And you've got these little stabs all the way through. Then Horizon is a very strange sort of floaty sort of track. Lots of strange noises keep coming in. It's just typical of Tangerine of the 80s. Yeah, I think the only thing that lacks on here is crowd noise, but then this was in the middle of the east of the Iron Curtain. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.8. Okay, coming in at number 4. Now, this is an album that there's not much about it. I only got this information off Prog Archives. And it's Valentine Wheels from 1998. It features Edgar Ferozzi and Jerome Ferozzi, Emil Hatchfeld and Zach Purser. This one starts off with Waterborne from the Oasis album, which is a good track. The Sorcerer theme is on here as well. Probably the best version of Poland on here. It's 8 minutes worth. They've got all the best bits and made it into this sort of continuous track. It's really, really good. Sundance Kid from the 220 volt. Then we have a track called Silver Scale. Now this is from the Tangents album 73 to 83. The original is about 12 minutes long, so they've cut it down, and they've done it for a reason, because on the other one there's bits in there that are just full of nonsense. So they've took out all that and shut it down, and this is the best version of this, without a doubt. Warsaw in the Sun's on here, and then sort of a condensed version of Stratosphere, the lovely Dolphin Dance from the wonderful Underwater Sunlight album. Then we have Le Parc, the LA Street Hawk, Beach Theme from The Thief, which is pretty cool. It's the shortest album, live album, but it's got some great stuff on it. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. So we've got to the top 3, and these to me are the most pinnacle live albums by this band. So coming in at number 3, an album released in 2000, but it's actually recorded in June 1976 at the Berliner Philharmonie. It's called Soundmill Navigator. Playing on here is Edgar Ferozzi, Chris Frank and Peter Baumann. It opens up with this. It's basically one piece of music. It's 40 minutes long, and it's just called Soundmill Navigator. It starts off like with a lot of eerie sounds, and you can feel like these clouds and mist and sound effects. You can picture what's going on, and then it sort of ticks up, but that eerie still things, it runs through the whole thing. Then about 18 minutes in comes some exquisite guitar work, which really adds to it, and then this sequencer sort of takes that guitar into another thing, and then it just sort of fades in and out, and it ends the way it started with this dramatic eeriness. Absolutely brilliant. It's moody, it's dramatic, it's got emotion. It is a fabulous piece of music. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9.2. Okay, coming in at number 2. This was recorded in 1975, and it's the brilliant Ricochet. Recorded at the Fairfields Hall in Croydon, and then sort of a little bit of done in the Manor Studio in Oxfordshire as well. So it's Peter, Chris and Edgar play on this. So Ricochet Part 1. It starts off with like this humming noise. It takes a little while to get going, but once it gets going, boys are going to get this screechy little sequencing that sort of zaps in and out through the whole of the track. Some lovely keyboard runs on there. There's a little bit of Mellotron hiding in there as well. Then we get the Part 2, and it just carries on. The drumming is the drum machine on this is sort of, or the drum, I don't know what it is, but it sounds absolutely brilliant. I love this piece of music, and you can tell little bits have been added in the studio, but don't take it away from it. It's excellent. So I'm going to give that an RTO ranking of 9.3. So to me, the best live album it was recorded on the 1977 US tour. and various venues, and it's called Encore. So it's Edgar, Christopher and Peter, that classic lineup. It opens up with probably one of my favourite pieces of music ever by Tangerine Dream, and it's Cherokee Lane. Oh, it's very what Jean-Michel Jarre was doing in the 70s as well. It's a combination of phasing, eeriness, lovely little keyboard runs. It's my favourite track on this album. It's absolutely brilliant. 16 minutes of genius. Then we get another track as 19 minutes, Moonlight. The drums, it's got this tinny sound to it, but it doesn't make it sound bad. Edgar was just creating something wonderful here. Great little track for 19 minutes. And then Cold Water Canyon. Now this was sort of drum programming that you would get in the 80s. They were doing it in the mid 70s. It's very quirky. This is what the future of music was going to be, and it's absolutely right. The drum programming on this is just absolutely top draw. And the album ends on side 4 with Desert Dream. It's one of the most dreamiest tracks you can come across. It makes you feel like that you're just in the vastness of desert, and I just the sound of it and the tones on them synths is just wonderful. What a track to end the album. This is not just a great live album, but a great album. I think this is up there with the studio albums as well. It's absolutely amazing piece of work. It's great to listen to under the headphones. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9.5. So there we go. There's this list of live albums. If I've missed any out, don't worry, just tell me them and I'll make a note, and then we'll do some more on there, like the bootleg ones and all the box sets. So there's still plenty to come from Tangerine Dream on the channel. Okay, coming up next is the first brand new album of the year, and it's from Tremonti, and it's called The End Will Show Us How. So we'll be doing that very soon. Bye for now.